Hello, and welcome everyone to the 10th Status Devs meeting, the first one for this year. We'll start with some Swarm updates for 15-30 minutes and then go through some hot topics. So first there is a design overview that Hess is going to go through, and then also talking about a security vulnerability in React Native Desktop. And then at the end, we can have, if there are any specific quick announcements. And thank you, Igor, for hosting this, and thank you, Rachel, for taking notes. So let's start with the swarms. Maybe we can start with Telenetwork. All right, let's hold on that one for a bit.
The Telenetwork. We had a really good brainstorming about it. I think we are heading to a direction where we can have a consistent MVP of what we want and how it will work. We have some open questions like, I need to act. Yuri, you're going to say something. Do you have the document of the brainstorming there?
I don't have it right here.
I will try to open here, so just a minute. Okay, so we discussed it. We mostly discussed what we want to discuss. So, but some things are like some open questions, like if the Telenetwork is only for a specific crypto to fiat, or it can be used for something else. So about reputation, if we are going to we're going to have these reputations. So this is something that we want to discuss. Something that I found really interesting about our brainstorming was that we kind of created an idea of how onboarding users that don't have any crypto for using the status and even the Telenetwork. And this would be like for you basically ask for someone to be your lawyer, or not especially a lawyer. I think that's not like a guarantor, subsidiary, that would this user would take a risk of the gas cost of your operations in the Telenetwork. For example, opening an arbitration or even opening the buy request, and these people would be paid by the value that is being brought in that crypto. So there is also a lot of topics to discuss, like for how we're going to make the dispute resolution, like how if that's going to have also indicator of trust that is part of reputation. If we want to blacklist some tokens like Petro, that seems like it's harmful for the crypto environment. If we want to support jurisdiction limits, like for example, for United States people, we want to support KYC. About if we want to have how we want to deal with the privacy of the transactions. If we want to list prices in DAI, or if we want to support DAI as the base. And yeah, I think that's, and also about, we discussed a lot of the user flows, how about the designs, how they should be. But everything right now is still, we're forming the first MVP of how it should be. And I am excited about it because at first I was a bit lost of how we are going to make this. And now I think we have something that we actually can make and will be something good and that have some differential, and that people will like it.
Awesome.
Right. So,
Cool.
so we're doing. I mean, we're basically attacking two fronts. One is the more long term and kind of really more complex front, which we discuss all our wish list and all the stuff we want to do and how we want to do it in an ideal scenario. Another one is more immediate MVP. So the more immediate MVP, we now have we have a basic working app, DApp, both mobile and desktop. The user can buy a license to sell. There's an escrow mechanism and dispute resolution. There's also UI to query prices for what the escrow exchange will be. Support for multiple ERC20 tokens. We can already rate also the transactions and get overall rating for the seller. I mean, there's stuff that is more code-wise, like Storybook and stuff like that. Multiple tests, good test coverage, and we also have functionality to list the available sellers. And what else? And we just did also for users to allow users to open arbitrage case and and we're working now on the arbitration UI for that arbitration. So that's what we have now with MVP.
Yeah, that's
cool.
kind of
Thank
what
you.
we have defined, it, right?
No, that's what we've done.
Sorry.
It's not defined. That's what we've done.
Is it
Okay, so it's ready.
So I think let's try to keep the updates. That was great, but let's, because we have, I think, 10 or 15 swarms or groups of people giving updates. So let's try to keep it fairly brief if it's possible. Cool. Let's see. Tribute Talk.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So for Tribute to Talk, we are starting to work on the screens, and we are doing a specification of the contracts. So we start with for the MVP with a simple Tribute to Talk where you pay the tribute with a regular transaction. So the contract is a very simple contract that just manages the tributes and allows one to check what the tribute is for a particular address. And that's it for now.
Cool. Sticky Market?
Yep. So last week we mostly worked on some various documents, like the research document is done, the specification is done, mostly because Rachel invested a lot of time in this. We also validated the mockup, so I think we are done with the mockup themselves. We agree that this is the right direction. Andre spent some time implementing those mockups, and this week I will try to glue the mockup with a contract. And actually, by the way, Ricardo did some work on this contract too. So one eventual open question that I would like to raise is that for the MVP, we probably will not consider ERC 721, but it's still open to discussion. So if someone has an opinion around that, that would be appreciated. And that's it.
Cool. Dapp Store?
Yeah. In terms of the Dapp Store, we've got the research phase running until at least the end of this month. There are a few different moving pieces to it, and it is only P1, so we don't have many core contributors taking part. There's two major parts to it we've decided. The first is simply design in order to solve some of the most basic user stories about being able to discover DApps easily, navigate to the ones that you've recently used and ones which might be relevant to you based on what's trending across the network, which for version 1 will probably just be calling like an API, seen as it's one of many options, not the only option. And if it falls over, it wouldn't break. Taken the decision to make it as a web DApp in line with the sticker markets and whatever other dApps like that come out of it. And then in parallel, we'll be doing a bunch more research around what exactly the optimal curation mechanism might be for something like this. Ricardo has offered a bit of help there. And you know, I put forward a proposal about using some simple bonded curves, but that obviously still needs to be validated by others. And like I say, we've got a little bit of a lack of resources on the swarm, so hopefully we can experiment with more bounties and sort of external contributions while the P0 work that everybody else is doing goes ahead full steam.
Cool. Network incentives?
Okay, so yeah, we are continuing our research. Like Andrea did like research of one of the ideas of incentivization our current infrastructure, meaning like Whisper and mail servers. But for the next week, we want to also take a look, like taking into account that there is also a protocol research happening. So we want something like more broad and more applicable and future-proof. So next week we want to have some research, or rather this week we want to have some research on something like different that's not like Whisper side, to just come up with something that's more generic and usable. So that's essentially it. I hope we'll share the documents this week, the drafts of research.
Right, and you can take improvements as well while you're at it.
Yeah, for the improvements, there's a different situation there. We just, there's not much research there. They're just like we are implementing things. So what we actually did is we wrap up the quicker login. So it's very, very fast on at least my phone and on even on the small phones, it's very quick. And it should be released in the internal release that we'll have this week, hopefully. The second thing that we also added a saving password for Android as well. So it's right now have this feature as well as iOS, but there is some more things to do there. So I don't consider it like implemented completely because we also need to like improve how it stores passwords in both places. So it's around like 30% in. Then we also like half done with a reliable messages. So pruning was, I guess it's already in status go, but it needs to be deployed to work properly. And there are a few things regarding like handling mail server confirmations and mail server management in general that needs to be done. And we also started our dependency audit, so we can build older versions of the application easier than right now when we just use some master or some current version of toolset. So and the last one is that there is some work was done with BFS and device sync. I don't think we will actively work on it like this week probably because it also might clash with Tribute to Talk. So there needs some coordination there. So that's all for us.
Cool, thank you. I'll do the protocol update. So mainly two things have been done. So one is workshop preparation. So we're going to meet just before FOSDEM in Brussels, end of January. Will be 5 to 7 people from Status. So working on sort of agenda and making it as useful to as many people as possible. The other thing is a proof of concept for a sort of data sync layer. I've written a post about this before, but the idea is that you can have sort of this in-between layer that doesn't concern itself with messages per se, but instead of just syncing a piece of data, and that allows us to sort of build things on top of it. That's sort of public chat, group chat, and so on. But then below it, you can sort of swap Whisper out and so on, while still being able to sort of sync data in a peer-to-peer way. And in this proof of concept, there is a protobuf specification that's wrong in some places, but it sort of gets the gist of it across, as well as a sort of basic simulation in Python that has some unreliability assumptions and also deals with mobile nodes having slightly different characteristics than something like a desktop node, where a mobile node is maybe mostly offline, but sometimes it goes online. And then sort of for a one-to-one chat and sort of seeing how the system behaves. So I did a short write-up, and I'll post the links to it in the notes if you want to have a look. And please ask questions, or there's specific things that you want to you want me to try to answer with this in sort of further proof of concept and so on. Please ping me as well. And next week this week we'll continue to work both in the workshop and looking at what the most fruitful direction for future proof of concept would be. Cool. DAO?
Yeah, so as far as DAO-based activity, the liquid pledging contracts, they've been deployed to Rinkeby, for further testing and actually getting a sense for how the UI that we built will actually interact, to better simulate how the UI might act on a real network as opposed to just in development. But the UI itself is essentially feature complete for the MVP, which means you can create a giver profile, a delegate profile, or a profile for a project, and a giver can create a pledge that will that can fund the pledge, and select a delegate, and a delegate can fund projects, and a giver can veto, or and projects can ultimately withdraw those funds after the commit period. So from that perspective, it's feature complete. Maybe it's not necessarily feature sound in the sense that it may not be the most intuitive UI for some functionality, which is the next steps in iteration. But also, we plan to just sync up with Giveth, who wrote the original liquid pledging contracts, to see where there's mutual overlap and think about a path towards going to mainnet, which of course at some point is going to involve a security audit. But we're just thinking about sort of what still needs to be done to these contracts from their perspective and from ours, where there's mutual overlap, and also to see the differences, to understand maybe there needs to be like a broader use case to generalize them more to accommodate these sort of broader use cases. But that's where it currently stands.
Hey, Barry, Corey here. Do you want to set up a meeting with me? We can go over them to see what kind of to talk about that a little more in depth. The security aspect of these things.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
Cool. Janitors? Jared or Nabil, do you want to take it from
here? Basically, we've been meeting regularly. We had 2 design reviews last week, and so I think the process was pretty good. We just want to make sure that we have engineers attending each design review to make sure that everything that's being proposed is feasible, and it's good for the engineers to be able to give input and have a heads up on what's coming along. Other than that, I think the progress is going well for the most part. The one thing that I'd like to kind of request from everyone is for all the swarm leads to make sure to put in the number of hours that is happening on the swarm into the spreadsheet that's been sent around by email, just so that we can keep track of budget. And so when we give updates at the town halls, the budgets, it doesn't need to be to the dot, but say plus or minus 10%, like a rough hourly amount spent, is really important for us to make sure that we're assessing things properly. And then in terms of the actual engineering progress, where everyone's using Pivotal Tracker, and I think some teams are using it more than others, and some teams are just getting used to using it. The more that we use that, the better it becomes and the more effective it is. And Yuri can probably give a good spiel on how great it's been, especially for his team. So yeah, those two things. One, make sure the hourly rates for the swarm leads are coming in and just get them in the team meeting. It shouldn't take more than like 30 seconds. And then, continuing to use Pivotal Tracker and making sure the granularities are around the right level, so that it's not just one issue that's being worked on for multiple weeks, but we can, like, if the issue is too big, break it down into smaller issues.
Thanks. And I just add one thing to that is it would be great if we could sort of keep the swarm ideas themselves updated and live. And for example, we're doing these updates now, and if it's just like a few bullet points, it takes like maybe a few minutes just to write down like, oh, here's roughly what we did this week, and just like a pointer to some artifact or whatever, and then just putting it in some workflow or something in the idea. If you want to do that, I think that would be great, because it gives sort of other people a very straightforward way of seeing what's happening and so on. And it's also a way to clarify your thoughts. So maybe if you write up the beforehand and you just put it there and then you just say it, and it makes you think about like what's actually changed. So it's just an idea, and it would be great if we can keep them updated so the state is clear. If it's too annoying or you're already doing it in Pivotal Tracker, then fine, don't do it. But it would be really useful.
Yeah, a real recourse on that is to review Pivotal Tracker and also update it. So either way, we'll be mindful of that. It's also worth noting that we are also in a research phase. So if you've got any feedback on how things are going, if there's anything that's not smooth, or any way we can improve our processes, please let us know so we can make those adaptations or at least trial them.
Yep. All right. So just briefly, do we have any updates from either core browser, or core chat that's not covered in the previous updates?
I can give some update on browser, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. Please.
Yeah, so mostly we try to tackle a number of low-hanging fruits related to what we consider essential. So things like fixing universal links in browser, or making sure that you can resolve, Ethereum transaction URL, whatever, something technical. Also, we worked on some EIPs, because we are a browser, so we try to work with all the other browsers, making sure that we all implement the same set of EIPs, and we have a number of rings and chats to discuss that. So there are currently like 2 different EIPs that different teams are pushing, and mostly MetaMask, but we are also heavily invested in that. So Andre did a lot of work around that last week. And finally, in parallel, I'm trying to finish the Kyber extension and making sure that all the relevant extension changes are being implemented. And I'm pretty happy that last week I was able to do like my first exchange with the Kyber extension. So hopefully, like very soon, we should be able to make this like a little bit more public, and maybe write a blog post or something. That's it.
Great, thank you. Anything from core or chat?
No.
Okay. Desktop?
Hi. So recently we merged new version of React Native 0.57 into React Native Desktop. And now there is a PR to move status desktop to this updated version. Also, there is a PR in progress and on review with links previews that can be enabled from settings in desktop application. That's it.
All right. Wallet.
Hi all. I have one update, and that's that wallet redesign, specifically the wallet send flow pull request, is almost ready to be reviewed and tested. So that's something new. It should be ready during this week, probably. So yeah, that's it. We'll probably prioritize the next task on our next call on Thursday. So if anyone wants to be in the loop, or either ping us or join the call.
Right. Keycard. Anyone from Keycard? All right. Security and DevOps, depending on if there's anything.
Yeah, I go ahead and take that topic I put up earlier. In the process of going through the dependency for React Native Desktop, I submitted a bunch of PRs to fix some of the issues that Snike had with the dependencies there, but one of them that didn't have an automatic fix in terms of just upgrading the dependency is a high severity bug in the Yeoman generator, which allows arbitrary command injection. I have submitted an issue in React Native Desktop, and it hasn't gotten much attention, but we really need to look into possible mitigations for this, and that may involve like all input validation to make sure that people can't take advantage of this. And it probably stems to React Native as well. So if I can get more people looking at this particular issue to find out how we can mitigate it, because it's not one of those things where you just upgrade the dependency and it's fixed. So it's the link to the bug is inside the notes here. So the more attention we can get on this, the more we can realize what implications it has on our application right now. It has potential to have severe implications based on arbitrary command injection. So let's get on it.
Yeah, and in terms of DevOps.
Sorry, Vladimir, do you think you can own that and we prioritize that? Because
did I understand correctly that we are talking about that Shell.js library that has vulnerability?
That's correct.
Yes, so as you mentioned, we have it from React Native itself. So this dependency is still in Facebook's React Native. And it is under the dev dependencies section, so it's not main dependency. And when we build for production, and it shouldn't be there, so it's not used as a main dependency. Also, I believe we will get rid of it right now when we are switched to React Native 0.57. We have plans to change React Native Desktop repo and make it a separate package that will be an out-of-tree platform in terms of React Native. So it won't contain all React Native code, only desktop related. And then I believe the dependency will go even from dev dependencies list.
Awesome. Can you write that in the issue and let's close it?
Yeah, okay. I see this issue. I will comment there, and we'll keep track.
And can we just also verify that it's 100% they won't make it into any nightly builds or anything? Because if it's actually activated, it's pretty dangerous. Like you can get seed phrase and everything, right?
And imagine the human generator is part of dev dependency. I want to triple check that it doesn't make it into production builds.
Unfortunately, Shell.js library itself doesn't have the fix for this. I checked, and they are not going to fix exactly that API method that is vulnerable to have a backward compatibility, but they are going to introduce a new, more safe method instead of this one. And if this is Yemen generators, it depends on this Shell.js and this call to the function. I hope they will also take advantage of a new method when it's released in Shell.js.
Can we just make sure that this week we make this a priority to get absolute clarity on this, that it's not something that's affecting nightly builds or anything? And if you need any help, you can also ask the core team and they will be able to assist as well.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Great, thank you. All right, cool. DevOps.
Yeah, so the main work happening right now is on essentially locking down the versions of software we use. So some of that is being done by Pedro. He's right now kind of changing how we build our Docker containers for both Linux and Windows. So we lock down pretty much everything in terms of versions. And I'm finishing work on the same, almost the same thing for Android. And once both of those are done, we can pretty much port also development locally into Docker. So we are sure that every time we build it, whether it's on Jenkins or locally, it's always using exactly the same tooling and exactly the same library versions. So that's probably going to be finished sometime this week. This was the main thing that's been happening.
Cool. QA?
Okay, last week, Friday, we added to Pivotal Tracker our project for QA called testing, and most of the tasks like last week, like common tasks for testers were release testing. Like we had, I believe, 4 or 5 builds to test. Now it's still in progress because we are waiting for status go update to test with this. As soon as it's done, we will also test battery consumption there and probably performance testing just to make sure that that we can measure it automatically. Also, for test automation, we have task to automate upgrade on Android. For the beginning, it will be upgrading with like empty account, but the next step would be also to create more charts and see how it goes with upgrade with real data. And as usual, writing test cases, updating them for the new features or modified features, and testing nightly builds. So there are like more or less repetitive tasks for like nightly release testing, updating test cases, plus for test automation, we will have like some focus like upgrade, battery consumption, performance testing in different scenarios that also will be described. That's it.
All right, great. Research/Nimbus, if there's anything. All right, Embark.
Embark?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to. You don't have to use that.
Yeah, I could. I mean, a lot actually stuff we're doing in Embark is related to the Taleb network and the DAO, in the sense that we sometimes, while during the Taleb network, we see bugs that we find bugs that need fixing or feature ideas and so on, and that's been quite useful. We're discussing a lot now, basically redoing the pipeline in some ways, making Embark much more pipeline agnostic, and that's something will be probably for Embark 5 for the next version. But it's a pretty big. It's a really big feature, so this way we can make Embark really work anywhere for whatever type of DApp, including web services or command line applications and so on. And well, I think that's the gist of it in some ways.
All right, cool. So I guess we have design overview, and then we have we already talked about React Native Desktop vulnerability. Before we go into design overview, is there something else that someone wants to add to the agenda? All right, cool. Hester?
Thanks, Oscar. Yeah, I can't share my screen, so I'm sharing the link here in Zoom, which is a little bit of a shame because it won't be visible on YouTube. So I'm hoping one of the hosts can share it.
Is the reason is it because you don't have?
I can promote Hester. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, Hester, try now to share the screen. It should work.
Where are we? That's my calendar. All right. Hope that's visible. It's pretty basic, but now that we've scoped the design work for at least most of the swarms, I thought it would be useful to give you a quick snapshot of the current allocation by team. Looking at core, Andre is the key contact for core. Under core, there are 2 swarms currently, polish/onboarding/patient 0. Which Andre is also working on, and network incentivization, which Andre is also working on. Then similar story for chat, where Mache is the key contact for the team. Yeah, roughly 3 swarms connected to that, even though sticker market is also DApp, so it's not necessarily one-on-one. But the swarms that Mache is responsible for at the moment is sticker market, True to Talk, and anti-spam. Then for dApps and browser, story changes slightly as the team contact is and will remain to be Dennis, who's been working on browser and dApps a lot up until now. Specifically for the dApp store swarm and going into telenetwork later, Andre will be the contact for now. Then under Embark, because it's a little bit difficult to connect the swarms to all individual teams, but let's say Teller Network, for Teller Network, the key contact is Dennis. There are some other activities going on always that demand the designer's attention, but for now, the ones that you see on the right are a little bit let's say, deprioritized. There might be time, like an hour or so every now and then, but they're not a priority for now, as the designers are like primarily focused on the white paper use cases. So to sum this up, this is the overview of the designers connected to teams and or swarms. If you see or submit any change that affects the UI for a particular swarm or team, please assign the respective designer on GitHub as well, so that they can monitor changes that go on that sometimes are not like 100% under their control or coming out of design, but at least so they know what's going on. That's it.
Awesome. Just a quick question. All the working packages that existed before, have they been either put on hold or are they folded into Polish? Or is that also something that's, what's the status of that?
Yeah, they're folded into Polish, exactly. So they're not necessarily on hold, because as soon as we would be able to revive them, the world will look different. But all the knowledge that has been built up, especially regarding profile at the moment, is picked up in Polish, let's say profile or identity. Let's say dApp discovery is part of dApp stores, so all the components that were discussed in the work packages are finding their place, but it's mainly through the designers and not through a process.
Cool. All right. I guess if there's nothing, any thoughts on this, or questions or anything? Right, cool. So I guess that's it for both updates and hot topics. Any quick announcements?
The prog POW sort of discussion topic in the community is worth taking note of. If you are not aware of it, look into it.
Truth is out there. All right. Cool. Thanks, everyone. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Oscar.